This is Tucker, and since on the last video we was able to get the rear of the car pretty well wrapped up and tied together, I think we're going to move forward a little bit here and try to go ahead and get the inside of the car kind of tied in and finished up. So we'll get started on that and see where we end up. Well, first off, we're going to go ahead and begin with attaching this 57 Chevy rocker panel, the outer, up here with the outer rocker panel area of the Buick Roadmaster. And initially when we first set the body down on here, we had just a small gap in between the outer rocker panel 90 right here with the outer of the Buick Roadmaster here. And initially my thoughts was to go ahead and make a kind of a little filler piece of sheet metal to go ahead and just sit down in between there just to kind of fill the gap. Kind of like that. And then I was going to come in and drill straight through that 90-degree area about every 2.5 inches, and then clamp these two lips here together and plug weld the rocker panel all the way along here. But since then, you know, everything's pretty solid on the car, and all this is going to be kind of covered up with seal plates and carpeting once we get it finished up. I think what we're going to end up doing is just going ahead and coming along this corner here of this 57 outer, drill down about every 2.5 inches, and then just spot weld it directly over the top side of that Buick Roadmaster rocker that it's sitting on. So we're going to go ahead and get started on that. Alright, now that we got the passenger side rocker stuck together here, we're going to go ahead and head on over to the driver's side and see if we can do the same with it. quick glance at the driver's side now that we got it all drilled and welded in here. So now we're going to go ahead and remove some of this metal racking in here up to about the back door area here. That way we can get in here a little easier. And we need to tie this B pillar in over there. I don't know if you can see where that little red pointer is at. We need to trim that up a little bit higher and make a pattern and get that part attached, because that's going to be quite a little bit of support to these B pillar areas. So we'll go ahead and start removing this rack and get started on the patterns. Now that we got a little bit of that angle iron removed, we can get in here and do a little bit of work on this B pillar area here. So I think what we're going to start off doing is come in here and kind of cut this B pillar up a little bit, kind of square it up. That way we can come in on this Roadmaster floor, clean a lot of that paint and seam sealer off of there, so we can get a good pattern, come in with some like 13 gauge, make a little piece to tie these two together. Because this bracket here is quite a little bit heavier gauge than most of the sheet metal on these 57s. So I'm thinking 13 gauge ought to be just about right. So we'll go ahead and start clearing away on this and see where we end up. Now that we got this piece fabbed up and welded in here on this B-pillar on the passenger side, we're going to go ahead and jump over to the driver's side, repeat everything that we did over here, and then we'll come back in and cut these angle irons out of here so we can clean all this up, and then we'll move on to the next part. now that we got the B-pillar all welded in here on the driver's side, I think it's time we can finally go ahead and get this angle iron bracing up out of the rest of this car. So we'll get started on that. what that B-pillar looks like on the driver's side after we got it kind of ground down and cleaned up a little bit. And here's the passenger side. And I went ahead and grabbed the factory armrest just to set it in here to see if it was going to need to be trimmed up any. But it actually kind of goes into place exactly like it probably did from the factory. It's a nice tight fit along the bottom here. I was thinking initially that I'd probably have to trim it off some, but it looks like it's going to fit exactly as it should. One thing is we're going to have to do a little bit of rework here on the front where them ironworms had gotten a hold of it. Well, about the biggest amount of welding and fabbing that we have left to do on the inside of the car is right along here where I took and notched this out a little bit with that cutoff wheel earlier on. And the reason I did that was for I had a reference point in case I used the original hardtop rear seat. With them, you have to have like this tubing piece that actually kind of goes along here, and it'll tie in onto the top side of the tunnel over here. And that'd be on 5, 6, or 7. I'm not sure if I'm going to use the original seat because that Roadmaster seat looks like it's going to be pretty close to fitting in this car. And if we can strip the covers off of it, it looks like we can actually get kind of an old school looking upholstery job on it. We might end up making that work. One of my hot rod buddies, Joe with Average Joe's Repair, he's pretty much the Charlie Daniels of a sewing machine. And so I'm going to have him take a look at it and see if we can do something with that and repurpose that seat. That way I can save that original hardtop seat for a future project. And here's a quick glance at the Goose's new floorboards here without having to look at it with all those angle irons in the way. Well, that's going to pretty much wrap it up on this one. But once again, I want to go ahead and thank everybody that's been watching and following along on this build. And if you're new to the channel and you see something that looks entertaining or useful in any way, please hit that like and subscribe button. And also to everybody, if you want to get notified on every new video that I put out, you can go ahead and hit that little bell icon and it'll give you like a little update every time I post a new video. So until next time, stay safe and take care.